What are you even supposed to be doing in your business? What does that mean? If you're an author and you're running an author business, what does it mean to do the numbers? What should you be looking at? What should you be doing on a regular basis? We did a video a few weeks back on cash flow and why looking at your cash flow is the most important metric. But I still want to go a little bit deeper because I still get questions that are things like, what are we supposed to actually be doing in our business? I don't even know where to start. What should I be looking at? What should I be doing? What does it even mean to do bookkeeping or to do finance? What does that look like when you're not a numbers person? That's not your background. I'm going to be doing a much deeper dive into this as we go along, but for this specific video, we're just going to cover kind of like an overview of my thoughts on what it means to do business or do the business part of your business. So first off, everything needs to be on some sort of time cadence, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly. You have to have some sort of frequency that you keep consistently with the different parts of your business. It can't just be whenever you feel like it. It can't just be every now and then. Whenever you're thinking about the numbers in your business and you're looking at reports or you're trying to figure out what to do next with your numbers, you need to have some sort of consistency. And the things that you do, I'm going to break into two different categories. It's going to be things you look at and things you actually do. So for example, you might look at a report on a daily or monthly basis, but you might actually categorize your transactions on a weekly basis. And so that's a looking thing and a doing thing. In this video, I want to focus more on the looking thing, like my concepts and mindset around what it means to look at things in your business and the whole point of it. And then I'll do another video later on the actual things you should be doing in your business, like bookkeeping, like transferring money with your profit first system, like taking profit distributions, paying your bills, and all that kind of stuff. So anytime that we're talking about what you're looking at in your business, it's not just to see it. I mean, there is a part of it that is like you see the number, you recognize it, and then you know, okay, now I know what to expect. So for example, if you check your cash balance every single day, you get an idea of what time of the month is it a high balance, what time of the month is a low balance, what are those ranges so that you know what to look for. But really the whole purpose of observing your numbers is to test them against an expectation that you already have. And maybe you're building the expectation by looking at the number. Maybe you don't know what to expect until you've seen it for long enough, and that's okay. So in the beginning, maybe the purpose of the observation is to build the expectation. But whenever you're comparing something that you're looking at to an expectation, the whole purpose of it is either to confirm the action that you're taking is the right action, or to indicate you need to change the action in some way. So let's say, as an example, you expect your return on ad spend to be 3 times. Like for every dollar you spend on ads, you generate 3 times the amount of revenue. You get $3 of revenue. And so maybe you have some sort of report or dashboard that feeds you that information on a regular basis, maybe weekly. So every Monday you look at the previous week's ROAS and you say, okay, it was a 3 times ROAS. That's what I expected. Now, the way you build that expectation is actually really important. I had a client that was constantly thinking that 2 times ROAS was the best that they could do. And so they were constantly trying to get to 2 times ROAS. And as soon as they would get to it, like things would stop. They wouldn't get any past 2 times ROAS. Then they changed the way that they did their ads and they saw that they could actually get 3, 4, maybe even 5 times ROAS with the same business. So where before, if she got to 2 times ROAS, everything was great. Now, if she got down to 2 times ROAS, it indicated that there was an issue. So the way that we make these expectations is important because sometimes those expectations can actually be limiting us and how much we can actually grow. But let's just say for purposes of this example that 3 times ROAS is the expectation. One week you look at it, maybe it's 2.8. That's pretty much in line with your expectations. Maybe the next week is 3.2. That's good. It's in line with your expectations. But if one week you look at it and it goes all the way down to 2 or below, then that should indicate that there's something that needs to happen. So I would break the action that needs to be taken after you observe something into 2 categories, but I'm going to actually break it into 3 categories. You'll see what I mean. So once you see that something needs to be changed, then we can categorize the types of changes that need to take place. You can either change the timing and frequency. So maybe you change your ads more often. Maybe you post ads more often. Maybe you put more money into the ad. Anything that has to do with the amount or the time or volume of things you're doing would be a quantitative factor. If we're talking about social media posts, the amount of times that you post. If we're talking about newsletters, the number of newsletters you send out. But in addition to the quantity, we could also change the quality. So the qualitative factors, how good are the ads? What types of ads are you doing? How good is the copy? How good is the image? All those things can change the result. But I would say that there's also a third category, which is maybe just like a static attribute. So if you move away from the ads example and we're talking about like just your books in general, maybe we need to change the price of your book. So again, whenever I'm looking at this, I'm thinking of how can I change the quantity or frequency of something? How can I change the quality of it? And then how can I change the attributes of it to get a different result? And to know which lever to pull, you have to understand the metric that you looked at. So if you're looking at return on ad spend, then you need to start looking into what makes up return on ad spend. Obviously, it's return and ad spend, but it goes deeper than that. I think the ad spend part of this is easy to understand. How much did you spend on ads? But the return part is made up of so many different things. You have the amount of impressions of people who actually see your ads, then the people actually click through to go to your website, then the people who actually purchase something, then how much are they buying it for? How much are they spending? How much do you get to keep from what they spend? All those little things all have individual levers that can be pulled, dials that can be turned to change the results. So whenever you're looking at these metrics, it's really important for you to be able to deconstruct them and figure out what specifically it is that you're tracking, because the whole purpose of this is to be able to take action. And if you don't know what's behind those numbers and what actions you can do to change the numbers, then it's no use looking at them. I know this is kind of a word salad and this is starting to be really ambiguous. And so let me give you a metaphor, an example that might make things even more confusing, but hopefully it illustrates what I'm trying to say. Years ago, back before we had like 3 businesses and 5 kids, we decided to do a little vegetable garden in our yard. And I promise this is going to be relevant. Just stick with me for a second. But there were some actions we needed to take to get the vegetable garden started, just like there's actions that you need to take one time to get your book written. So you write the book, you do the cover design, you get the editor in place, you do all those one-time things that you don't have to continue to do after the book's written. Just like with the garden, we had to build the frame, we had to buy the soil, we had to plant the seeds, all those upfront one-time things. But then once everything was established, there were things that I would have to check on a daily basis. For example, I might have to check to see and make sure that the soil is damp, not too wet because it could flood the seeds, and not too dry because then there's not enough water. So if I went to check every single day to see if the soil was damp enough, and if it was, then it just meant there was no more action to take. But if the soil was too dry, then it meant I need to take action. So just like what we were saying about business stuff where you can change the quantity or quality of something, I could do this too with the garden. I could just increase the amount of times that we're watering the garden. But if I felt like I was already spending a lot of time watering the garden, maybe I could look to see, do we have a more efficient way to water it? Maybe there is some sort of system we could put in place, some sort of irrigation, some sort of automatic watering system where I wouldn't have to do it myself every single day, or we can change the amount of water that's going into it rather than the frequency of it. And then what else might I be checking whenever I'm checking the soil? I'm going to check to see if the plants are actually growing. If we planted seeds, dry seeds, we want to make sure that there's sprouts coming out. Once the sprouts are coming out, maybe we would measure the size of them. I don't remember what we did for this. I probably didn't do any of that, but maybe you're supposed to measure the size of the sprout. Same way with your business. Maybe you're just going to measure things to make sure that the change is going at a rate that you want it to go. Later, once the tomatoes and everything else started growing, we would check for insects and pests. And if there were none, then great, we wouldn't do anything. But if there were some, then we'd have to figure out what we do about that. So we have to take that action. I'm going way deep into this metaphor because I want to point out something important. Notice that the thing that we would do and the things that we would check change throughout the life cycle of that garden. I don't have to measure the sprout or the size of the plant once it's fully grown. I don't have to check for insects and bugs necessarily before there's any plants even in the ground. And this is why I think it's so ambiguous and it's so hard to know what it is you're supposed to actually be doing in your business and what things you're supposed to be looking at. It's because it's different for every single business. And it's going to be different at the different stages of business that you're in. So different parts of the year, you're going to look at different things in your business. And even different years, you're going to be looking at different things entirely. Whenever I was a CFO of a bank, there were some things that we just looked at consistently every single time that we met. But just depending on like the economic environment and monetary policy and what was going on in the world and interest rates, we might be focused on something else specifically at different points in time. So my reports to the board at the bank would change over time depending on what it was that we were focused on at that moment. Same thing's true with your business. There's going to be things that you should be looking at on a regular basis forever. And there's going to also be things that you look at sometimes and you don't look at other times. If you run a Kickstarter, you're obviously going to be checking how many people have backed your Kickstarter. But if you're not running a Kickstarter, you're not going to be checking Kickstarter backers because there's none to check. So just thinking through this, what are some of those things that I think you should be looking at every single day, no matter where you are in your business? Really, really simply, I would say check your cash balance every single day. You should always know how much money you have in the bank. And I would also say have an idea or know definitively what bills you have coming due for the next full 7 days. So if you're looking at this on Monday, you want to know what bill's coming out today and all through the following Monday. On Tuesday, you're going to know what bills are coming out that Tuesday, all through the following Tuesday. And why is that? Well, if I just said, look at the bills coming out this week, and I said, just do that on a weekly basis. Well, if you do that every Monday, you're going to miss the things that are coming out that day. Or if you're only looking at this calendar week, then you're going to miss the things that are coming out at the beginning of the next week, and you're not going to have enough time to adjust for those. So if every single day you know how much money is in the bank and how much of that money is obligated to other things, whether it's credit card payments, subscriptions that are coming due, automatic drafts from some of your vendors, you'll know what things are coming out in the next 7 days, and you should be able to say, okay, I have enough money to cover the next 7 days worth of expenses that are coming out. Or maybe you don't have enough money to cover those, but you need to know if you have money coming in. And if you don't have money coming in, then you can change something. You can do something. You can move money around if needed. You can defer payment on certain things. But the point is, you always need to know how much money you have on hand and how much money you have going out in the next 7 days. So that's as deep as I want to go in this video. I don't want to go too detailed. I'm going to do a series of videos though, I think, on like specifically what you should be looking at on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, the different actions that you might be able to take depending on what you're seeing, and then switch over to the different actions that you should be taking on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Over time, we can even develop some worksheets and checklists with this and help to figure out what it is it means to actually run your business. Was this helpful? Do you have an idea of what you should be looking at on a regular basis? Is there something that you're looking at on a regular basis that has really helped give you insights into your own business or take action whenever you needed to? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you next time.